my plan moving forward is to sell, something like a half or a third to one half of my content to a publisher, and then keep the other two-thirds roughly or so for indie publishing.
Yeah.
That way, I've still got a foot in both worlds, but I have some works that are still coming out that I control every single year. I think that that's really important. And of course, advertising is not optional these
Right.
days for most authors. And getting back into the swing of doing that again is after doing nothing but trad for a bunch of years, has also been a relearning experience because ad systems are constantly in flux. When I come up with an idea in the first place, I usually try to aim for ideas that have some sort of scope to them. I'm really looking for at least 6 novels worth of content. 12 would be better. And the reason why, if I was going for novellas, I'd probably want 12 at a minimum, and 24 would be better. You know what I mean? Um, First off, I watch a lot of TV. I love good television series, especially the ones that have multiple seasons. I love seeing more adventures about the same characters. And the ones I really love best are the ones that have individual arcs for each episode, but also have an overarching arc for the entire season or whatever. I like to have the threads continue from episode to episode as they move forward.
The theme of this is like breaking your biggest blocks, like having your blocks broken. And so, like, how can we use tropes to that end?
Yeah. I think you can use them in a lot of different ways. You can use them to build a story, you can use them to revise a story, you can use them at the end to go back and see like what do I have and how can I make it stronger. But in terms of blocks, I really like tropes for like helping me figure out who the characters are. I like them to figure out like what's their background or is it a loner? Is it an orphan? And those are like come up so many times. It doesn't have to be like that's like the biggest part of them, but a lot of times those are so important because what it does is it isolates the characters and then they're like really primed to go on a significant journey. So I like to think about like what are 3 tropes that help me figure out who this character is. Then I like to think about, well, what kind of relationship challenges do they have, and then look at tropes and look at tropes for that and how those are going to kind of like develop through the course of the book. So I think when you're stuck, I really find like it's helpful to think of like what don't I know and what like so I don't understand if I don't understand this character, what do I need to know about them, and to kind of dig down in that. And for me, it's been helpful to use tropes to do that, to think about, what was their background, what's their current workplace like, how do they get along with their family, because it doesn't matter whatever genre you write, you're going to have those elements in it because it's all again relationship stuff.
In terms of being creatively blocked, I think it's because of structure that I very rarely to never, knock on for Micah, get creatively blocked. I'm obsessed with patterns and how things work and going into the nitty-gritty. Like I think I would have probably been a physicist if I could hold on the math in my head and really studied like atoms and subnuclear atomic things. But I think the number one thing to get past, to maneuver around, to completely avoid a block is to call a thing a thing. That's something Ayanna Van Zant always said, call a thing a thing. I think when you name something, it it loses some of its negative power. So whenever people are asking me, well, I have a plot block. Well, I start asking questions like, well, where are you in the plot? Like, huh? What? Like, where are you in the structure? Where are you in the trope? Where are you in the love story? Where are you in the mystery or thriller? Because there's patterns there. And if you know where you are, like on a map, if you know where you are and then you get lost, if you pull out that map and you unfold it and open up, then you can figure out, oh, I thought I was here back on I-95, but I'm actually on 20 West. And if I just get back over using these streets to get back over to I-95, I can continue on my way. And the names of those streets are maybe the meet cute, or if you're doing dark romance, maybe this is the place where the hero, the anti-hero, you get his backstory and understand why he's so obsessed with that heroine. There are patterns, there are things that are named, there are There are pathways that people have already walked that you can take a look at and say, oh, that's how they did it. That's how they got there. And then you go your own way.
This is a thing we talk about a lot, and maybe it's kind of adjacent to like getting over your blocks is yes, asking yourself questions like, what do I do well? And what am I doing that's working? Because
Yeah.
we tend to ask ourselves really self-sabotaging questions like, why am I so bad at this thing? Or why aren't ads ever working for me? And think about so our subconscious is built to want to find answers for us. It's like your little golden retriever. It's like, you got it. You want an answer to that? I'm on it, right? And it will, so then you're like, why do I suck? And it's like, I will show you why.
Right.
And then you start seeing things that you take as reaffirmation that you suck. Like, oh, this is why, because, my book made $5 today or whatever. And you just use it as reaffirming that this is your
Right.
truth. So you just ask different questions and you get better feeling answers. And it's still true. It's just different perspective, right? So yours was like, what's already going well for us? What are we already strong in? Oh, this. Okay, let's put more effort there. That feels good. That makes more sense. You will get essentially, for lack of a better word, like better ROI on your
Right.
time or whatever. Yeah, that makes a huge difference in how you approach your business and how you feel about it. That's awesome.
Sometimes just the action of doing it more than somebody who maybe could do it better but doesn't, you've just upped your like lottery right there.
Right.
So I've always said that. It's always nice to know I don't have to be the smartest one in the room at all. I never am. But I'm going to be the one that tries it. I'm going to be
Right.
the one that does it and that shows up for myself. And I've been coming ahead all the time with that.
Speaking of neurodivergence, I have a friend who's also neurodivergent and we body double. A lot of writers will sprint with other writers kind of to force you to, somebody's watching, I have to do it, I'm accountable. We're like, why can't we do this for the hardest thing, physical activity? So we get on the phone and we get to talk with each other and FaceTime each day. And now, like, we'll show up for each other and it's turned into also showing up for ourselves. So making sure, I'm getting enough water, that I'm sleeping well, that I'm eating whole foods, just different things my body likes. And I've learned to listen to the story it tells. So that's a skill I've been working really hard on developing. And it really feeds back into having that more resilient mental health as well. There's a lot of voices and there's a lot of opinions all the time, all the time. You can never escape that in anything, but especially in writing, because we need opinions for people to buy our work and promote our work. But the only voice that really, really matters is your own. So work on that relationship with yourself, be confident and love yourself, take care of yourself, and you can withstand anybody else who comes at you.
Yeah, I've definitely hit periods in books where I'm just like, I don't know what to do next. The characters aren't speaking to me, um, or the book feels boring, right? And I'm just like, I'm bored writing this book. I'm certain people are going to be bored reading this book, so I don't want to keep going. And I've had to struggle with that like a bunch of different times. Some of them has been like, for me, I think they fall into two categories. One is the creative well is dry. Um, and that means I wrote too much, I wrote too hard. I'm not sleeping well, I'm not eating well. It's things outside of writing that I need to go take care of. I need to take care of myself. I need to take a week off and just read some books or something like that. So that's sort of, I think, stuff I think every person has to kind of solve on their own. But when it comes to the actual book itself, I think that almost every single time that I've come to a point in a book where I'm like, I'm motivated to write, I want to get the book done, but I can't get it done. Either I don't know my setting well enough or I don't know my characters well enough. And so I can't, my method of writing is I ask my characters what they're going to do next. I'm like, you're in this situation. What are you going to do? And if the characters are like, well, I don't know, it means that something's missing and I have to backtrack and figure out what that is.
Your mission is to find one author you admire that you think of as a big author. They don't have to write in your genre. Find them, follow them on socials, sign up for their newsletter, and every time you see them, you're going to say, oh, she's like me. I'm like her. She's like me. She just got her article published in the New York Times about all of her books and her series. That's me. That's like me. Oh, that's like me. And this is so cool because it actually is normalizing and calming your nervous system. Just imagining it, it creates a pathway of safety. And that's really important. We just took, and just by showing up to this, you you see us on Zoom and our faces are like right up in yours, and your body is like, oh, they're our tribe now.
There have been two major points in my career where I thought about not continuing with the career or didn't have the capacity to continue with the career. The first one is a block that I think a lot of people get to, is that they try to follow all the rules and do everything that the internet and anyone under the sun named Bob tells them to do. And there's so much there that they get jammed up.
Hmm.
Uh, Early in my career, I tried to write books in order, chapter one, then chapter two, then chapter three. And I was horrendously slow at it. It would take me a year, year and a half to get through, one rough draft. And I realized that I can't write books in order. It came to my attention that I am much faster and much better if I map out the project ahead of time, know what each chapter is going to be, and then write whatever chapter I bloody feel like writing that day. I'll write chapter one today, chapter 40 tomorrow, chapter 28 the next day, and build all the bridges to connect them later on in the process. And that sped me up like crazy. I got to the point where I was writing 4 or 5 books a year. That still isn't very fast compared to some other folks out there who do, one a month or so. But for me, that was lightning speed, right? I was suddenly the Flash when it came to writing. I always tell people start out with at least some kind of summary, even if it's a 1 or 2 page summary of where your story is going, and
Hmm.
use that to guide you, particularly when you get stuck. I sit down, I'm like, I don't know what scene to write today. I'll flip through my cards until inspiration strikes. Oh, chapter 41. That one sounds like a great one to write today. And I've got a card telling me what to write. So I
Right.
don't have to stare at a blank page. I don't have to, figure it out. I've got my guide to take me along the path.
I think early on my block was actually figuring out how to write a novel, period. Like I thought because I'm one of those people who want to be an author since I was like a child, since I was like 8. So I thought, well, I know how to storytell. I've written all these little short stories and mini books as a kid and as a teenager. So once I got to writing my proper novel, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. But then I realized that novel writing is actually as much um, craft and technique as it is storytelling. And I had to learn the technique part. I had to learn the technical stuff. I had to learn the craft. So it took me 6 years to write my first novel because I really didn't know how to, as wild as that sounds, I didn't know how to write a novel. So my first block was craft, like figuring out all the techniques, understanding how to build characters, understanding how to include suspense, all of that stuff. Like that was my initial block. And I came through that through a lot of studying, a lot of reading, speaking to other authors. Like being an author, I think is, or at least in people's minds, it feels like this very solo kind of mission that you're on, and to an extent, it is and it can be. But I think if you are brave enough to open it up just a little bit and start speaking to other authors, start speaking to editors, you'll find that it could be a little bit more communal. And that really helped me. So I think getting over my first block was just like figuring that out, the craft.
Yeah. So some of the ways that I think that you can kind of sneak around it are to try a different form. So if you're super stuck on your novel, then you can write short stories, you could write a poem. I have very recently been interested in songwriting. It's just a form that, like, I went to a songwriting camp and stuff. And what I've found is it's very interesting because songs are so small. I can address themes that, like, I have these big ideas for books. Oh, I should write a book about whatever. And that's hard for me to build to a theme like that. I start with a premise and a theme will evolve. Whereas with a song, I can do that. I can just say, oh, well, this is kind of about this. Or another thing you can do is like free writing, the Julia Cameron style morning pages. Or one of the uses that I have tried with AI with mixed success, for me, it just depends on the person, is kind of brainstorming. What could happen here? A lot of times I'll do that with another person. It's usually Sean, my writing partner, but getting another brain or entity, or if it's AI, I don't know how you define that, just hitting back and forth things that it's like, even if you never use anything directly, it's interesting to hear a response. Well, I'm thinking about doing this. What are some variants? And then whoever you're talking to, or whatever you're talking to, says, well, you could do this. And you say, oh, well, I don't like that. But you've opened up a new possibility that I wasn't even considering just because I asked the question.
The block is sort of the point, right? Like the block is that's the good stuff. You know what I mean? Because there's what you're trying to write about. And this is like I coach people through this a lot. Is like there's what you're trying to write about, and then there's the block, right? And most of the time I'm finding that the block that's getting in the way of what you want to write about is what the essay is actually about. Because like there's literally that's like literal drama. There's actual like there's like conflict. You want to do something, you can't do it, and there's something standing in the way. The thing in your way, like that's the juice. That's the good stuff. So like as hard as it is for me, and it is always hard, even knowing and believing what I'm saying right now is like the block is what's valuable.